waiting for us. Are you ready? All right, because I don't want to scream much louder than I already am. All right, I'm going to introduce to you our speaker tonight. This is Austin Davenport. He's an Austin-based cultivation coach and a gardener. And he's known for his work with Central Texas Gardener, PBS. Are you impressed? And workshops at places like the Austin Public Library and for Austin Organic Gardeners. Are you impressed? Yes! He focuses on hydroponics, growing gourmet mushrooms, permaculture, and vegetable gardening. His expertise includes teaching about soil amendments, growing food indoors, and designing food forests and raised beds. So put your hands together and welcome Austin Davenport. He's going to tell us about mushrooms tonight. He looks really young too, doesn't he?
Alrighty, thank you so much for that introduction. My name is Austin. I am a cultivation coach here in Central Texas. I make it my mission to meet you wherever you are and help you grow towards your goals, whatever they may be. I am a generalist by trade. I mostly got infatuated with high production farm systems, so every time I'm gardening, I'm kind of farming my garden. I want really good numbers. I want to put in a lot of effort and get in a lot of yield for my efforts. So that's kind of how I do things. I do consultations, classes, workshops, all sorts of things. I'm one of the many leaders at the Mycological Society. We make it our mission to get you connected to the natural world around you through the avenues and realms of fungi and mushrooms. We have a monthly guest speaker series with an expert in their field, and we just had an expert talk to us last Tuesday on our YouTube channel. And we have a grand archive of a bunch of amazing talks from experts in their field, whether that's using mushrooms to make textile dyes for clothing, using mushrooms to heal forever plastics out of the soils, using bioremediation, a bunch of really cool stuff, nature photography. We have a whole gigantic archive of really amazing stuff I would highly encourage you to deep dive into. Today, we're just going to be running through like the basics of growing your own mushrooms. Mushrooms kind of hate it if it's hotter than 82 degrees outside, and we are right about to turn that corner into just prime mushroom season for Central Texas. Our mushroom growing season starts in about late October, early November, and goes all the way until about mid-April. Anytime outside that, like right now, I'm growing a lot of mushrooms indoors, but as temperatures come back down, I can switch to growing outdoors. I brought a truck full of mushroom blocks with me. So feel free to grab some of those, jot down.
And Clayton did
Yes,
too.
Clayton also brought some. So make sure to grab some blocks on your way out and sign up on that sheet for next month's garden party that you'll be bringing the mushrooms. Try to be the first one on that sheet. These are our topics we'll go over. We'll go over varieties. We'll go over substrate and sterilization, whatever that means. We're going to go over growing methods and containers, and then some troubleshooting and some like easy mistakes people make. I try to keep my presentations fairly conversational. I'll be speeding through a lot that I can. But if you got a question, if you got a comment, feel free to just stop me and take the reins for a second and give me a breather. I also give away my presentations at the end of my presentation, so I have a little QR code. I'll provide another PDF copy of a higher resolution. That would be a little bit more difficult to grab from a QR code. So feel free to take notes, but you will have access to this material all right after this. Cool. Now, I want you to have a mental image in your mind that we're going to refer to throughout this presentation. I want you to think about where a mushroom wants to be growing out in the forest. I want you to think about a really beautiful, healthy forest of oaks. And I want you to think about that dense canopy trapping in a bunch of humidity underneath it with good gusts of wind flowing through and just a little bit of dappled light coming through that canopy down to the base of a trunk of a tree where a mushroom wants to be. And they're getting a little bit of humidity, a little bit of light, and a good gentle current of air. And those are the things that we're always going to want to mimic. Anytime we're growing plants, anytime we're growing fungi, we really want to try to mimic the habits that they are preferred. We want to give them the conditions they're used to, and then get the heck out of the way, and they'll take it from there. So just think about base of a tree, there's a giant mushroom growing, what are the conditions there? There's humidity, there's trapped humidity, there's gentle currents of air, and there's a little bit of dappled light. Okay, varieties. The number one thing to think about is that there's an abundance of variety choices to get into. Things that grow well outside, things that can do just fine indoors, more domesticated varieties, medicinal varieties. You're really spoiled for choice when it comes to getting into gourmet edible mushrooms. There are medicinal mushrooms we'll be talking about, ones that are very hard to eat and usually powdered, and then there'll be like high-end gourmet mushrooms that are better to be used in the kitchen. These are typically sold as cultivars that are colonized out on grains or sawdust, and you could buy these products online. Or you could grab the genetics once and then close the loop and never have to do this again and just repropagate your own genetics after you've bought one initial thing, but that's a whole other presentation. You also could buy your own woody substrates, things that are already pre-sterilized. We'll get into that later. But in the realms of fungi, there is huge pressure for competition, and we really want to like wipe the slate clean, give our guy a good chance in that race, and kind of coach him along towards the finish line so we can get our food before another mushroom comes in and bullies our guy out for his resources. A lot of mushrooms do have slightly different preferred conditions, and I'm going to go over those. The number one mushroom I want you to get exposed to, and if this is your first time growing mushrooms, I want you to focus on the oyster mushrooms. These are going to be the best performers. They're like, every time you're like, hey, someone's asking me to get into gardening, what do I tell them? I tell them, start with herbs. You know, they can take some pain, they can take some beginner's learning curve. But oyster mushrooms perform just fine outside of their preferred conditions. They're pretty much always going to be the highest yield of the bunch. And I find that they're actually the easiest to use in the kitchen. I have a bit of a culinary background, and every time I'm trying to teach people how to grow their own food, I'm reminding them, I want you to think about what you want to eat and grow backwards from there. Do not think about, I don't want you to think about what you want to grow, I want you to think about what you want to eat. I want you to think about what you want to consume and grow towards those goals. People will move to Texas, and they're from Minnesota or whatever, and they're like, what should I grow here? And you tell them okra, but they have no relationship with okra, and they grow it, and it goes bad in the fridge. So think about what you want to eat, not what you want to grow. You might want to be growing the lion's mane. Lion's mane are heralded for like having really good brain benefits that have been backed up by a lot of science. I don't really get into nutrition. I'm just a cultivation guy. I show you how to grow it. I'm not going to talk about health benefits. That's not my bag. But lion's mane is heralded for those benefits. It is a very particular and finicky mushroom that will start to really show its unhappy very quickly. So this one is kind of an intermediate or slash advanced mushroom to be growing. It's a little expensive too, so you might accidentally spend some money and then wind up out of luck. I also have Pia Pino up here. That's another popular one that's more of like a side dish than sort of like a meat substitute replacement. The blue oyster mushrooms I find have a really great meaty flavor, incredibly agreeable. You could use whatever preparation. If you want to make chicken fried steak out of mushrooms, that's the one to do it with. But Pia Pinos just have like a nice earthy flavor with them. They go best with like some garlic and butter, and that's it. And they're just really good. You get a good harvest out of them. Then I have king trumpet mushrooms. These ones prefer things 60 degrees or under. So these are ones that I would pretty much only be growing outdoors in January and February. I don't know how things happen around here in January and February, but in Austin, it's always a crapshoot. It could be 85, it could be 0. We just never know until we get there.
Very true.
But king trumpet mushrooms are going to want really, really cold temperatures. I wouldn't bother with them unless you could provide that kind of condition to them. In my apartment in Austin, I actually have a 5 foot by 5 foot by 7.5 foot tall reflective grow box called a grow tent that I bought from a local hydroponics shop for like 20% the cost, and that's where I grow all my mushrooms indoors. There's reflective light in there. I get to make that thing really humid. I get to have a bunch of good airflow in there, and then I just kind of leave. And now all my stuff is on timers. Mushrooms, plants, these things want consistency. They want good amounts of consistent care that isn't just swinging left and right. Be like, oh, I gave you no light, now I'm going to give you 48 hours of light. Oh, I haven't watered you, so now I'm going to drown you. Give these things consistency. The next one is shiitake. Shiitake kind of like things a little bit more arid, and these ones are great to be growing out on logs. And you could be growing your own log inoculated mushrooms here in Seguin, pretty easy. There are warm weather summer fruiting mushrooms, shiitake specifically, that do just fine here. I'm trying to build out a business plan to help local farmers like get to building 9-page business plans so that they could go to the loan office and get a really good deal as opposed to a bad deal. And I'm kind of basing my entire farm business plan off of like growing shiitakes in like Bastrop or something, anywhere where it's just like nice and shaded. And next I have reishi mushrooms. These are kind of medicinal mushrooms. This is probably one of the most hard to eat edible things in the world. But they take a really great shape to anything you want to mold them to. A woman just made an entire kayak, just kind of like stuffing this stuff in a mold of a kayak. It looks just fine. It'll outlive her grandchildren. I'm trying to grow one into a nice table piece. They'll take whatever shape you want. They are typically a shelf mushroom, and they are native here, so you will find them running around. But yeah, they've been used in traditional Chinese medicine for like 2,000 years. They're pretty popular in the medicinal mushroom category.
Sir?
Yeah.
You said they're hard to eat. You mean they taste bad or just real tough and
They'll
stringy?
break your teeth. They will absolutely.
Hard as a rock.
They're so hard. They're being used to make like bricks, leathers, textiles. Yeah. So this one you gotta dry and then you gotta powder it. It's a whole process. All right. Chestnut mushrooms. Really nice nutty flavor. Really good balance. Really good yield, but this one is also a little bit more finicky than those oyster mushrooms. So this is great, again, side dish type mushroom, good meaty flavor, just some herbs, some butter, some garlic, and that's all these guys need. The next two I have here are in a bit of a different configuration in those bags. These two, the wine caps and the morels, are not ones that you could be farming indoors. These are not ones that mushroom farms can farm indoors. These things are really difficult and require a lot more synergies with the natural world around them to produce mushrooms. They want to see what else is going on around them between trees, weather, climate, all sorts of things. So these guys are the cats of the mushrooms. They are not domesticated whatsoever. They're going to do things on their time, not your time. And these are ones that you're going to want to like put a bunch of mulch in your yard and introduce the spawn into your yard. And as you're watering your yard or whatever, these should be popping up and self-propagating themselves. If you're introducing these kinds of mushrooms into your yard and hopefully letting them naturalize in your yard to constantly have little mushrooms popping up. I have a video on that later. But yeah, you just put a bunch of hardwood, preferably oak. These mushrooms all like hardwoods over softwoods. I'm not going to be talking much about like button mushrooms, the white mushrooms, the cremini mushrooms. Those are compost / dung-loving mushrooms that, you know, kind of grow in the dark like people normally think. But I am mostly going to be talking about wood-loving gourmet edibles that do enjoy a little bit of light, not a lot of light, as much as like a little cilantro plant would want. So not intense, but still some light. Morels are kind of the first sign of spring. So right around our last frost date, we'll start to see them here. And then in the next zone above us, they'll pop, and then the next zone above us, they'll pop. We have a lot of expert foragers on our myco staff. And we found about 3 last year. With some of the best foragers in Texas, we found about 3. So these are pretty difficult. Morels you will almost only find in grocery stores in a dried form because, again, they're really hard to find. They're almost always foraged. They're super expensive. So if you can go crazy on 5 inches of mulch in your yard, shove a bunch of this sawdust spawn in there and pray, you might wind up making a lot more money than you put into it. But that's all to say that like there's a lot of options, there's a lot of different habits and conditions that each mushroom enjoys. And I, again, want you to think about what you want to eat, not what you want to grow. All right. These are the 3 main pillars of growing your own gourmet edible mushrooms. And this just harkens back to our mental image of that nice big mushroom in the healthy oak forest. Mushrooms do need a little bit of light. Again, just a little bit. You can give them pretty intense light, but they don't want to be out there full sun. They want a good amount of shade, and they want that dappled light coming through the shade canopy. Again, I have them in my grow tent. I have all my plants and stuff at the top, and then underneath at the very bottom where there is still a little bit of light reflecting all throughout the walls of my grow tent, that's where I have all my mushrooms. So they're still getting a little bit of light. There's a constant air circulation in there. And then humidity is an absolute must. Most of these mushrooms are going to want something between 80% humidity to 90% humidity. And again, I'm not making my apartment 95% humidity. I'm making their apartment 95% humidity, and then I'm still chilling in like 50, 60s. And then fresh air exchange. If you just focus on these three things, the only things you need to focus on in this presentation are these three things. They do need air because they actually exhale oxygen, exhale carbon dioxide and intake oxygen just like we do. So if you're not giving your mushrooms access to air, they're going to be leggy, they're going to produce a lot less, and it's just not going to work out very well. All right. So, substrate. Your substrate is your mushroom's food source, it's its nutrition source, it's its home, and it's its water source. It's everything. And that's why it needs all of these different things. It needs all these minerals. It needs really nice fluffiness so that the mycelium can freely move throughout. It needs 50 to 70% hydration, 1 to 2% nitrogen. Starting off as sterile as you can give it, and just set all of the latent fungi in a specific substrate to 0 so you can introduce your guy and give him a head start in that race. And then pH 5 to 6.5, pretty normal stuff. And again, this could be straw, this could be agricultural byproducts, coconut fibers, logs, wood chips. Manure is again a whole different kind of classification of mushrooms that we're not really getting into. This is pretty complicated, but you can just buy sterilized stuff, and there is what's called the Master's Mix. Let's see if that's it. Nope. Anyway, so most mushroom farms are using what are called the Master's Mix, and there are quite a lot of mushroom farms in the Central Texas area. In our area, 10,000 of these mushroom blocks that I have loaded up in my truck in Clayton's are going to the landfill every week. Every week. And these are mushrooms that are high organic content, already partially decomposed woody materials. And again, healthy, vibrant mycelium ready to provide you with 2 to 3 rounds of mushrooms. What happens is the mushroom farms go through all the hard work of taking a bunch of sawdust, typically 80% hardwood oak sawdust and 20% soybean hulls, the actual bean pods of soybeans. And they mix that all together, they sterilize it, they introduce a particular mushroom variety, and then they grow that out for about 2 to 3 weeks. It produces one gigantic flush, is what we call it, harvest of mushrooms, and then they throw it right in the trash. Because the mushroom farms are operating on such tight margins that they have no space that they can allocate to leave these blocks going for another second flush, third flush, fourth flush, sometimes fifth flush. It's a law of diminishing returns. The next flush is going to take a little bit longer than that first one. You'll get a little bit less, and then again, the third flush is going to take a little bit longer than that. You'll get a little bit less, unless it's being very generous. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. Sometimes you'll get back-to-back-to-back flushes using the same materials, same climate conditions. That mushroom is just being generous that time. But the mushroom farms do not have the opportunity to like sit in space or allocate labor to like, oh, we got to compost this stuff. No, if I try to pay a guy to compost that stuff, I'm going to go out of business. And that's just how mushroom farms are operating. It's very unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. That's where we come in, and we try to rescue as many thousands of those blocks as we can each week and provide them to you, the community, to use either to grow your own mushrooms or use them for composting efforts. This is a page out of our website. This is the mushroom block community map, and this is a map showing you where you can find our mushroom block pickup sites that are static. I don't know where this is in Seguin. I haven't been around the neighborhood very long. Yes. What do we have here? Crockett Street. You guys know where Crockett Street is? All right, yes. Yes. You should have pretty much year-round access to these blocks. We have 30 different host sites all across the Austin, San Antonio, Kyle, Bernie area. And our mushroom block host sites, they just tell us one thing: if there aren't any blocks. All of the red signs here, those indicate that there are not blocks on there, and we're on it. We've already been notified, and we're going to be refreshing those within a week's time. I was told that the Seguin block pickup site needed some blocks. I brought some with me. I will be dropping those off after y'all clean me out, and whatever I have left, I'm going to drop off over there.
You're not gonna have any left?
That would be great, because then I don't have to go anywhere else. Besides, tell somebody, hey, we got to get back out here. All right.
We need to do the closing of the ones and stuff before we send these lots.
So I originally got started by growing little mushrooms out of mushroom growing kits. I got really good at growing my own vegetables, and I was like, I need to continue the learning process. What do I do next? And then I was like, okay, mushrooms, we'll do that. So I went to this website, North Spore. These guys are out of Maine, I believe. And I just ordered some spray kits from them. Let's see here, kits. Please stop. All right. So I just grabbed a couple of these. I grabbed the lion's mane and the blue oyster. Of course, my lion's mane didn't work out because it was my first time growing mushrooms. But the blue oysters work just fine. These are like $30. Comes with its own little spray bottle, and it just tells you every day to spray the front of that. And that's all you really need to do as well with the blocks I have here. Just give them a spray down once a day, and that'll create enough humidity within their environment. I would recommend keeping them in the bags. The bags are the protective skin of the mushroom. It's helping prevent other mushrooms from hitting the block itself and starting to colonize and overrun your mushroom with something you can't eat. But yeah, that's substrate in a nutshell. It's something you could do yourself, or you could pay a small premium to get pre-sterilized substrates. It really depends. Like, is this my hobby? Am I trying to grow my own food as like a way of enhancing my lifestyle, as opposed to spending a bunch of money to think I'm enhancing my lifestyle? It's a battle we all face. And, you know, it's an always changing pendulum. But I could just go out and get a bunch of hardwood wood chips. If I know an arborist and I'll be like, hey, you got oak chips for me? Bring them over. I'm going to sterilize them myself, and then I'm going to inoculate them with mushrooms. This step is for the most part not optional, but we do plenty of like low tech or like no tech outdoors where we just fire from the hip, let whatever happens, happens. And we just go in with a bunch of hay and mycelium and try to set up our guy for success and really, really cross our fingers. But as I said, I'm a guy that puts a lot of effort into my cultivation, and I expect a lot of results. So I'm going to do best practices. I'm always going to try to apply best practices, and then you can scale yourself down from there based on your efforts and goals, but also realign your expectations. For me, sterilizing substrate is always a must. And I'm always doing that via one of two ways. There is cold water / lime sterilization, where we are kicking that pH up to about a 13, where pretty much nothing on planet Earth can survive, which kind of resets that to 0, sterilizes it completely, and then you just let that drain. And that pH 13 is highly volatile. That'll gently come back down and level out as the whatever straw or sawdust pellets, whatever I put in there. And then that is actually that could be a little bit dangerous. It's not recommended to handle a lot of lime powder. I prefer the second method, which is just a hot water sterilization, pasteurization, whatever you want to call it. I get a 7-gallon food grade bucket with a lid. I boil a bunch of water, 2 specific ratios. There's specific water ratios to volume of substrate. And I will put that substrate in my 5-gallon bucket. I will pour a bunch of boiling hot water on that. I'll put the lid on, I'll go to bed. And I'll wake up in the morning, and then I'm ready to use that substrate. It's been reset to 0, it's killed all the fungi that are in there, and I'm ready to rock. And I didn't have to pay somebody a premium to do all that for me, but you could if you're feeling up for that. In indoor cultivation, we're usually using something that looks a lot like this. This is called a Martha tent, and you can see our visual aid here. This is a prefabricated kit you can get. I believe there's a IKEA not too far that has some kind of like glass case you could be doing this exact same thing in. And there are just a few pieces of kit here that are really important to shout out. The first being air ventilation. That thing on the top left of the actual equipment, that is a fan blowing air away from the mushrooms and just constant. So air is going to be pulled up through the bottom and expunged outside through the top. And then the thing next to it is this ducting to install yourself. And then underneath that is a humidifier. I don't buy humidifiers for my mushrooms. For some reason, the exact same product will be sold at different price points depending on what it is you're using. If I'm going to go get some tennis balls for the dog, I will go get the tennis balls in the can as opposed to buying $5 a tennis ball in the pet aisle. Same thing with humidifiers. I will go to PetSmart and I will get a terrarium fogger, which is just a humidifier for reptiles. It's way cheaper than the humidifier in the section that actually has humidifiers and stuff like that. So that's what I do. And right next to that is a power controller with a humidity sensor. So that power controller, you plug your humidifier into that, and it's taking readings of like, where's the humidity level at, and do I need to turn on the humidifier? I'm not bothering with turning on and off my humidifier on a daily basis. I have a sensor for that. And I'm gonna place that sensor in the most arid space. So if my humidifier is at the very bottom of that shelf, I'm gonna place my sensor at the very top, the furthest away, so that I'm getting an accurate reading of does this actually need humidity or not. I always joke with people in my presentations that like, I could die in my apartment alone and nobody would find me for like 3 weeks or whatever, but you would find my garden just absolutely fine, loaded, ready to harvest. And that's because I like to use timers. And these are things that I'm not paying full price for. I'm buying them at the hydroponic store. I don't imagine this is the case in Seguin, but in Austin, there are a lot of wealthy people that don't appreciate nothing. And what they do is they think, oh, I could get into this. I could get into hydroponics or whatever. And they buy a lot of high-end equipment, get bored of it because it doesn't work for them automatically. And then I come along and buy that secondhand for
Half price.
yeah, way less than that. And I just encourage you to like be savvy about it, see what you can find on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and stuff like that. I think there's one hydroponics store in San Antonio. I don't exactly remember where, but just in very south Austin, right as you enter South Austin, we have a really great hydroponic shop called Bright Ideas. That's where I'm always at. It's like a candy land for gardeners. They have a bunch of fertilizers. It's not just hydroponic stuff. And they're actually more of like an aquaponics kind of place where they're marrying fish and plants and having that be a closed loop system all in and of itself. If you want that presentation, just grab my email after class.
I may have to call you back.
Yeah. The more simple thing to do is called the monotub. Just get a clear plastic tote, cut a few holes in it so that air can move through it, and then you just, again, put the humidity source in, put your humidity sensor in, and you just walk away. All I will do is before I go to I will grab a block from our block program. I'm gonna wipe it down with 70% isopropyl alcohol just to kind of like get that block clean because it has been sitting outside, and I don't want any latent things that have attached to the plastic to be there when I'm actually trying to grow my mushrooms. So I'll give it a little wipe down with the Clorox wipe or whatever. I will wipe down my plastic tote, and then I'm going to put my block in there. I'm going to put my humidity source in there, my humidity sensor in there, and then I just walk away until it's time to grab my mushrooms. I just walk past it, see if it's ready to go. If not, no worries. These things take about 2 to 3 weeks, and they look like they're doing absolutely nothing, but they're doing a lot of internal work under the hood, and they're also running a little checklist. Do I have enough humidity? Do I have enough nutrition? Do I have enough light? And once these conditions are satisfied, it's mushroom go time. The mushroom is the fungus's like reproductive system. It's the sexual organ. So it's really there to just do that one thing and go away. The fact that it's a great edible for us, that's just a cherry on the cake. And maybe mushrooms know this, and they've just been kind of grooming us for eons to kind of do their work. It's like, when you're out in the forest and you're foraging really good gourmet mushrooms, you're usually doing it with like a basket or something that is like perforated so that when you're walking around back to your hut, you're dropping those spores as you go around. The mushrooms have been, they're our big brother. They were like one of the first things to pop out of the water, and everything else kind of has a symbiotic, convenient relationship with mushrooms. 90% of plants have some sort of beneficial mycorrhizal relationship with mushrooms. It's crazy. But anyway, yeah. And all I would do is take a spray bottle this tub up, make sure that there's air holes in it that I've placed. I grab a Chipotle and adobo can, I'll eat the Chipotles, I'll clean up the can, And what I'll do is I'll heat that can up on the gas stove and I'll push that can through the plastic walls to get a perfect cut through the walls. You can't get a really good cut using scissors or X-Acto knives. You will cut yourself. Maybe you won't. I'm left-handed, so that's just what happens with me. But I would go outside, poke a hole through it with a hot can, and then boom, I have my air holes. If you really want to go extra, there's sticker filters you can put on that hole that allow air to pass through, but fungi to not pass through. So that's what I got going on. Before I got my grow tent, I had my plastic tub. This setup, maybe 60 bucks, and the amount of mushrooms I'll get off of it will pay itself off in value in about 3 harvests. Because these things are $32 a pound at the grocery store. I cannot afford that, so I just do it myself, and it is pretty easy. All right, so these are some good low-tech methods. Again, as temperatures are coming back down, I think our first 85-degree instance of weather coming up is going to be October 4th, the first Saturday of October. That's when temperatures are going to come back down, and our nighttime temperatures are going to finally be under 65 degrees. If you're waiting for all your pepper plants and eggplants and tomatoes to continue to produce, that's the time when it'll probably resume that, because those flowers sterilize themselves at 65 degrees or higher at night. Right now it's like 70 degrees at night, so things are still kind of stalled out. But you could use a bucket with holes, you could use a milk crate, a hamper, sheet mulch, you could use a strawberry planter. We used to do a bunch of like, we're bringing a bunch of hay and mushroom blocks, you bring me your broken hamper, we're gonna fill it full of mushroom stuff, place it under a shady tree and hose it down once a day. And people got a lot of mushrooms out of that. And then we kind of stopped doing that, and then people kept showing up to events and mushroom walks and foraging with like a hamper, and they just had like one weird guy who brought a hamper to the event. That was on us. So these are some examples of what that looks like. There's that hamper. We have a straw bale here, we have a strawberry planter, and then a bucket that just had some holes cut into it. These are all great instances of people just using what they got on hand to grow mushrooms outside. And you will get a lot. You will get an absolute lot. You will need to be sharing. You will need to try to time this up for next month's gathering. You will get everybody sick of your mushrooms at the garden party. But you can, again, be growing on logs. We do a bunch of log classes, and if you want to get into that, just hit us up again. We'll come back out and we'll do a whole thing with y'all. The number one thing you want to realize about growing on your own logs is that you need fresh wood. If that wood is like 2 weeks old, there's already some kind of fungus in there. That's going to be really hard to get out, so you want fresh cut wood. Now's the time. Find your friends in the community that are arborists. Be like, hey, I need as many oak logs as you can give me, about that big and about like that thick, and no major damage to the outside bark. The inside, there are a bunch of like rings within the wood of a tree. And that like second or third innermost ring is the nutrition that all the fungi want. And so what we do is we drill holes in the log every like 4 to 6 inches, just deep enough to place our mushroom as a little IKEA peg. You can buy these little IKEA pegs that are just colonized with specific mushrooms, shiitakes, reishi, whatever you want. You'll drill your hole in, you'll put your peg in, and then you need to seal that hole so that no other fungi come in the back door and try to outpace your mushroom. And you need to do that with a high heat wax. I know what you're all thinking. Immediately the thought is, oh, I'll use some beeswax to seal that hole. No, don't do that. The beeswax will melt at about like 90, 95, and that's like most of the year here. So your wax will just melt right off of your logs in summertime, and it'll be like you didn't waste the time to do it at all. So go with a high heat wax, and just place these things Lincoln log style somewhere where it's heavily shaded. Make sure that you're watering them down, maintaining good moist conditions, good airflow, and on your second year, you will be absolutely loaded. These things will produce probably about 3 to 4 pounds per log, depending on the log. But again, hardwood, preferably oak. Everybody in Japan is using oak. We're right up next to the post oak savanna. Texas has probably the highest diversity of oak species of the US. So this is just like, why not? Like, the opportunity is sitting right there, and it's probably the most easiest to do here, which is hilarious because we're in Texas. And if you're from like New York, if you're from Oregon, you're like, oh, I would just trip over mushrooms on walks and stuff like that. And here, it's really hard to find mushrooms out in the wild, but it will be pretty easy to grow mushrooms here. I am a pretty avid organic gardener, and in my garden beds, I usually have about 2 to 3 inches of straight hardwood mulch, and I'm just like, I'm gonna grow more food there. I'm gonna mix in some substrate, and that way I have some grain spawn, and that way I have mushrooms popping up underneath my kales, my cabbages. I got food growing under food, growing under food. It's great. And that mushroom is also a decomposer. It's breaking that wood chip down even faster, turning it into highly organic matter that almost all of our soils are devoid of. Most soils in Texas are about 0.5% organic matter, when we really want something close to like 2 to 5% organic matter, so you gotta go heavy. And anytime I'm trying to do soil health, I'm building up. I'm not digging into the ground. I hardly put a shovel in the ground. I met a lady who is really avid, and she's in her golden years, and she was like, my right knee is just absolutely screwed from hard clay shoveling all throughout her gardening career, and now that just terrifies me. I really want to try to keep an eye out for that old man I'll turn into, so I'm trying to avoid shoveling as much as I can. But yeah, if you're mulching in your garden, mix some mushrooms in there too. You'll get food on top of your food. You can also just get a big old straw bale of straw, not hay. Hay has a bunch of seeds in it that'll become a problem for you. But if you go just straight straw, organic straw, which is nearly impossible to find. I don't know if you guys know anybody that might have some organic hay, but if you do, you could definitely try this process out. If you look really, really closely at this photo, there are actually 2 logs right underneath that straw bale, so that air is able to flow underneath and around it. And again, air is super, super, super important. And all they did was take the straw bale, hose it down for an hour, come back, hose it down for another hour, come back, think it's overwatered, hose it down for another hour, and then you just take a shovel, take a spade, take whatever you want, and just stab a bunch of mushroom spawn in there. And then in about 2 weeks, looks like it's done nothing. About another week, you'll think, oh my God, this isn't doing anything. All my friends are gonna make fun of me. And then the next week, you'll have a mushroom the size of your head. These things are all water weight, so it takes only about 7 days to go from a teeny tiny little mushroom on the surface to a mushroom that big. Yeah, it's 3 weeks, and then it'll rest for about 3 weeks. It'll check off that list. Do I have enough food? Do I have enough water? Are my conditions being met? Air, light, water, things like that. Once those things are satisfied, I'll put out another flush of mushrooms. And again, it'll do that typically 4 times, sometimes 5. All right. Cool, so I'm gonna stop talking for 6 minutes or so. I think we're doing pretty good on time.
You've been talking fast.
I'm trying to get you guys out of here. I really appreciate you all. What's up?
What does mushroom spawn look like?
It looks like a bag that's like white with a bunch of little bits of sawdust in it. But it'll primarily be like a white little bag. Yeah, I'll show you.
What is the mushrooms that come up in your yard?
It's hard to tell. You would need to, for identifying mushrooms, I try to find 2 of the exact same mushroom. I flip one upside down, put it right next to the one that has like a top-down view. I take a photo and I upload it to iNaturalist. I don't use my Googles. I don't use my Apples. They are hoarding that information from themselves, but iNaturalist is for the people. So I'll upload my mushroom photos, as good of a photo as I can give them, with as much information as I can convey in that one photo, which is why we have a top-down view and a bottom-up view, so I can see underneath the gills and just a top-down view. I will upload that photo to iNaturalist, and then first an algorithm comes in and tries to best guess what you got going on there, based on your location, based on the data you give it. And it'll be like, it's this mushroom, I think. And iNaturalist actually pays experts to come back in, look at your grainy, shaky photos with your thumb in it, and re-verify that, and let you know what you got going on. So it's really hard to just be like, what do I got here? Without there's a lot that goes into proper identifying a plant, proper identifying a bug. If you're trying to identify a bug, again, upload it to iNaturalist, try to get a good clear photo of it, throw a penny in the photo so that there's a size comparison. But yeah, that's what I would do for mushroom identification. It's really difficult to be I know exactly what's growing in your yard without really getting a good idea of ins and outs. Some people even taste mushrooms. You can taste any mushroom. You just can't swallow any mushrooms. But this is what the grain spawns look like. They're just a bag. There's bits of whiteness, little wood things in there. Sometimes it's brown rice, sometimes it's millet, sometimes it's wheat. But I got a little video for you here. This is a favorite YouTuber of mine. It's an older gentleman in Illinois. He's in the Chicago suburbs. I want you to think about one thing and keep an eye out as we're looking at this video. This guy has less than 6 hours of direct sunlight in his yard. He has, for his entire lot, less than a quarter of an acre for his entire house lot. He's got a bigger front yard than a backyard, and he is still able to get a ton of production at everything he's doing. So just keep a little eye out for that and keep that thing in mind.
We attempted to grow a number of different mushroom varieties in our garden over the years, but didn't have much success until we grew wine cap mushrooms, which are also known as King Stropharia. Today I'll share 6 tips to help you easily grow wine cap mushrooms in your garden and keep them coming back year after year. Let's start by taking a look at the wine cap mushrooms we are growing in wood chip mulch here in the shade behind our fruit house. They're called wine caps because of the burgundy red wine color of the younger caps. They're also called King Stropharia because of the crown that grows around the stem near the cap. The caps turn brown when the mushrooms mature, and their taste and texture are similar to portobello mushrooms. We enjoy them grilled, sauteed, in pastas and stir-fries, and in mushroom burgers. They're found in North America and Europe, and have been introduced in Australia and New Zealand. Now let's get started with today's 6 tips to successfully and easily grow wine cap mushrooms in your garden. The first tip is that you'll need the right kind of substrate or growing medium. Unfortunately, wine caps aren't all that picky. We're growing ours in wood chips, but they don't require any particular kind of wood chip. We're using free arborist wood chips, which consist of chips from a wide variety of trees. You can also...
He doesn't even know what he has in there. Could be softwood trees, could be a problematic trees. These are really crappy chips too. Like, this is gonna take forever to break down. This is the freest, most bargain bin crappy mulch you can grab.
You can also get wood chips from arborists for free. If you live in the U.S., there's a service called Chip Drop that connects gardeners with arborists for free or low-cost wood chip delivery.
Any chip droppers here? Anybody have a chip drop? How was that? How many tons?
Oh, that's 80 yards.
80 yards, yeah, that's probably 50, 60 tons of wood chips right on your driveway.
Yards. And they come from right in the driveway.
Yeah, they dump it right in your driveway. They box you in. So make sure you get a friend if you're going with the old chip drop. Be very careful. And you have to, if you go on chip drop and you're like, sign me up for a chip drop, you have no idea when that's showing up. So that one day where you are hauling ass trying to get out of your yard, bam, you got blocked in by 50 tons of wood chips.
Take 3 months to dig it.
So get some friends before you try this.
There are a lot of arborists around here that are collecting, doing tree work, and they have lots of this mulch stuff that if they have to take it someplace, they have to
Yeah, they have to pay to
drive
dump
there
it.
and pay to just, drop it off. But they can drop it off at your house if there's, if your house is closer.
Absolutely. Do you have a question?
Janet, we're coming to your house for your mushrooms.
I just wanted to mention that the chip drop, this man is not joking. I thought it was 2 cubic feet.
No.
Yes, so if you're in the civil assurance area and you would like some mulch, please come by my house. I have half a load still, and it's free. You just have to shovel it and take it.
All right.
You can go to Max Target, right down the road, and you can load up all your fruits.
Lovely. You guys have a municipal wood chip pile. That's nice. We have one in Austin, and what I do is I kind of start to climb this big mountain of wood chips, and I put my shovel in it, and I really want to get all of my wood chips from the core of that pile, because that gigantic pile of wood chips that's like 20, 30 feet tall, it's composting. If you dig deep enough in, it's 130 degrees in there, and that wood chips is already starting to turn into dark, black, partially decomposed wood chips, and that's the stuff I want because it'll break down a lot faster than the stuff in this
And it's hot.
in this shot.
And
Yeah,
it's hot.
yeah. All right, let's keep going.
Depending on where you live, you may also be able to find free straw in your area. Whether you choose straw or wood chips, wine caps speed up their decomposition, and you'll need to refresh the substrate every now and then. Reapply new wood chips at least once a year. The second tip is that you'll need to inoculate your wood chip.
Look at that asparagus. He's like right next to his blackberry bush. He's just flexing all of this while he's telling you how to grow mushrooms.
Or straw substrate with wine cap mushroom spawn. Mushroom spawn is simply a substance like sawdust that's been inoculated with mushroom mycelium. You can then apply the spawn to your substrate to inoculate it. We inoculated our wood chips with Stropharia sawdust wood chip spawn purchased from fungi.com. This site is owned by mushroom guru Paul Stamets. If you inoculate in the spring, you should have your first harvest by the fall. All we need to get started is to spread wine cap mushroom spawn over the wood chips here in the shade of our blackberries. That was several years ago, and since then the wine caps have spread all over the garden on their own to wherever there's wood chips. I'll talk more about that later. Tip number 3 is to make sure you have the right growing conditions for your wine cap mushrooms. We already talked about the fact they like to grow in wood chips and straw. They also prefer partial shade, plenty of moisture, soil temps above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and ambient temperatures, mostly in the 60s and 70s. Our wine caps pop up all over the garden, but do best in our blackberries and in the shade behind our hoop house. We get enough rain here that we usually don't have to water the substrate. But if you get less rain, make sure to water enough to keep the substrate from getting bone dry between waterings. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, wine caps like a soil temperature about 50 degrees Fahrenheit and relatively cool ambient temperatures, mostly in the 60s and 70s. For us, this means we get 2 harvests each year, one starting in late spring and another starting in late summer. It's too hot in midsummer for wine caps to grow. Tip number 4 will help you correctly identify wine cap mushrooms so you don't confuse them with other mushrooms growing in your garden that may not be edible. Fortunately, wine caps have some unique characteristics and are fairly easy to identify. When they first emerge, they look like this. The cap is rounded and has a color similar to port wine. When they mature, the caps flatten and turn light brown. The gills on the bottom of the cap have a gray or purple-gray color, and there's a ring around the stem below the cap that looks kind of like a king's crown. This crown is called an annulus and is the inspiration for the king in the name King Stropharia. Finally, their stems swell at the base. The 5th tip is when to harvest your wine cap mushrooms. I prefer to harvest wine caps when they're in the button stage. I like their taste and texture best at this size. But sometimes I don't get to them in time, and harvest them when they're the size of a medium portobello mushroom. They still taste good at this size, but I wouldn't want to wait much longer. Wine caps grow very fast and can get very large. But when they do, their texture and taste isn't as good. Finally, tip number 6 is to not harvest all of your mushrooms. Instead, let some grow to full maturity and decompose. These mushrooms will develop and release spores. Some of these spores will be blown around the garden, and hopefully they'll inoculate other areas where you have wood chips and straw. This way you'll have mushrooms year after year without having to buy more mushroom spawn. So if you'd like to grow mushrooms in your garden, wine caps are a great choice. They're easy to grow, easy to identify, and taste great. Follow these 6 tips, and you'll be well on your way to growing wine cap mushrooms in your garden.
Yep. And he's doing everything like easy, accessible, repurposed materials. That guy is not spending a lot of money in his garden, but he is getting a lot of materials and putting a lot of good work in. What's up?
What's his name? Or the name of the channel?
1 Yard Revolution. OYR. Frugal and sustainable organic. Yeah. All right.
What about oak wood trees? If you have oak wood trees, can you still grow mushrooms on them or not?
That's pretty heavily infected with a fungi already, that oak wilt, so I would try to avoid diseased wood if I could. Unfortunately, with oak wilt trees, they just gotta have to hit the landfill. It's hard to, if I was trying to compost those too, I might be introducing that again to whatever I put that compost down on. These are your basic things to avoid. Avoid temperatures over 80. I've had people tell me, oh, I keep my indoor temperature in my home at about 82, and I'm like, you are not of this earth, because that is just weird. It's strange. But yeah, your indoor home temperatures, they're gonna be just fine, but they are gonna be very seasonal here in Texas. So again, November through March, prime growing season for mushrooms. We're almost there, folks. We are so close. If you're gonna grab bags from me and mushroom blocks from me, find a spot like this door, like this is your sliding glass patio door. I'm gonna put my mushroom block right up next to it, and then just once a day, I'm just gonna hit it with a spray bottle and come back, and next day hit it with a spray bottle, and at some point, when I'm not looking, it'll go, dang it! And it'll do that for you.
Keep it in the plastic though?
Keep it in the plastic, that's its protective skin. All of the mushroom farms are farming your mushrooms in plastic. Unfortunately, it's just the kind of best way to do it. Until the wheel gets reinvented, that's where all your mushrooms are coming from.
So you don't soak the block or anything, you just...
Nope, just hit it, spray bottle once a day.
It's got little holes in it or something?
Yeah, all of the blocks that I brought already have a hole cut into it where the first flush of mushrooms will come out of, and that's usually where the second will come out of. If you're seeing mushrooms growing on the blocks that you grab from me, and they're like growing not where the hole is, just slice a little hole and let them loose. They'll be fine.
Come on.
Airflow. These mushrooms indoors really want to be in two spaces in your home. One would be by your dishwasher, where it's a naturally humid environment. So if you got a nice windowsill in the kitchen, right up next to the washing machine or the dishwasher, that's where I would place my mushroom block, or in my shower. But not everybody's into that. No pressure. No pressure. I'm going to get into composting, but here's that QR code. How much light? Just a little bit, about as much as like 6 hours of direct light a day would be fine. Whatever you're giving your house plants will be just fine.
What's the most calorie dense mushroom?
Ooh, I do not know. Good question.
Google.
It's 80 degrees, don't go higher than that, but lowest temperature.
50? Yeah, the lowest temperature would be 50.
You know, you made my day, because for years and years, I had the blues because I thought I had to have a basement.
No basement
I'm
required.
gonna run amok.
What's up?
Where will we go to
Yeah, but we're gonna finish our meeting first.
Yeah. I got them right outside. As soon as you walk out the door, I got a truckload. I got Clayton's truck loaded. And then we have this on our website, this map.
We won't be long.
With the strawberry pot.
Yeah.
Could you just put hardwood in there with the